What's going on, guys? Welcome to the fifth episode of Illegal Defense. We're going to get into it. A lot of great games, a lot of great college football games, NFL games. But first off, we're going to get right into it with college football.
Right. And so, this week, a lot of teams getting into their league games and league matchups. A lot less cupcakes on the schedule. So, getting to see some real football being played, some more fair
Competition.
competition, right, through all the different conferences around the country. And, we'll start off with an SEC matchup with number two Alabama heading into number 20 Arkansas. Big matchup for the week. A lot of people high on Arkansas coming into this. It
Right.
was a fairly big spread, and talks about maybe them covering and playing Alabama tight, and Alabama kind of letting their foot off the gas a little bit on the road against team as of late. But
Yeah.
Alabama showed up to play and was able to overcome some injuries and even big injury to their Heisman quarterback with a
With Bryce
shoulder,
Young, yeah.
where initially looking that it might be worse than what it actually is. Now there's talks that maybe it's maybe more of a sprain and maybe won't be a season ending injury. But their backup Jalen Milroe steps in and they were able to keep humming. Arkansas,
They had him against the ropes most of the game.
yeah,
And it
they
was kind of concerning considering, Arkansas's identity is to run the football. When you're a
right.
great team that can run the football, again, it makes it really hard to try to like match up with that because we see that in multiple teams in college football and in the NFL. That's kind of like the Niners for like the 49ers identity.
Yeah, when you're able to run the football, you get to chew up the clock, you get
Right.
to hold on to the possession, you get to kind of dictate the game. Arkansas has been a master at that, going for a few years now. So
Yeah.
this is kind of what they built their identity around. And in this game, like you said, they were playing them close until Alabama kind of stepped away and
And
ran
just
away
blew
with
it out
it
the
later.
water,
But
really.
rushing yards, Alabama 317, Arkansas 187, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of tells you all you need to know. If you came and you were able to see the future of those stats, you would figure, okay, Alabama is going to
He's
handle
gonna
them.
handle it.
But
Yeah.
when you watch the game, it was a little bit of a different story to begin with. But at the end of the day, that
Alabama is
Alabama
just too
was
much to
too
handle.
much. Yeah, too
And
much.
like once it go it's hats off to Nick Saban, and he has all his players ready to go. Next man up mentality is like is a huge thing, obviously, in any team. And with Alabama, right after Bryce Young just goes down, they pick up right. I mean, it took some time. Like I know it was maybe after the first and second drive that they were able to get things going, but the fact that they were able to get things going and eventually blow them out of like just water, like they were. If you were watching the game and then you went and you figured, oh, let me just go to the store, let me come back, you wouldn't expect like a 49-26 blowout. Like you would think like, oh, maybe it would be 29-26 that Alabama just edges them, but they ended up getting the big W, and they handled business. So
Yeah, yeah, sure. Um, yeah, and who knows what's going on now with Alabama, right? We talked about the injury to Bryce Young, and who knows what's the next step with that? Will Milroe have to play a few more games? Will Bryce Young, how long will he be out? How will it affect him? Is it something that can potentially be re-injured in the future? But definitely some things to watch. Milroe, though, a little more Jalen Hurts type
right,
than a Bryce Young or a Tua. So it'll be interesting to see if they do have to stick with their backup quarterback. He's backup because he's at Alabama and almost anywhere else in the country.
you're a
Most other
starter,
places,
yeah.
he's a starter outside of a few programs. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do have to stick with Milroe, how that turns out, and what their offense looks like as a reflection of that.
Right.
But moving on, we'll talk about another game, big matchup. This one, we're going to the Big 12 here, and you know, let's talk about this Iowa State versus Kansas game. Huge matchup for the Big 12. Iowa State trying to get on the right track and compete with the rest of the Big 12. The Big 12 as a conference, a lot of parity there, a lot of teams, all within striking distance of potentially winning that
Winning that
conference. Right,
conference,
it's
yeah.
probably the conference with the most teams have a shot. And they're going against a Kansas team, a surprise Kansas team that we've talked about plenty
Plenty
over
of
the
times,
last
yeah.
over the last few weeks of they're just surprising everyone. Their offense has been clicking. They've been handling things on defense, and they've been coming away with wins. And they were undefeated. And they have this matchup at home. Kansas offense absolutely humming this game. They're held to 14 points at home and still come out with a win when they hold Iowa to 11. And that makes Kansas 5-0, clear leader in the Big 12 right now.
And now they're ranked, which is respectively they
Yeah,
should be
yeah,
ranked.
and now they're finally ranked, which they probably should have been before, but now they are ranked as a result of this game. And yeah, I mean, look, Iowa State's a pretty good team, and they'll have other opportunities to you know
Kind of
continue
come
to
back
to
from
yeah
this.
to climb the ranks of the Big 12 and to be able to put themselves in position towards the end of the season to have a shot to compete for that Big 12 title. But Kansas right now is hot.
It's
They're
hot, yeah, and it's momentum.
yeah,
You get a few wins under your belt, and it's like, okay, we got something going here, and then it leads to 3 games, it leads to 4 games, leads to 5 games, and it's like, all right, let's now you start to believe in the program, you start to believe in the philosophy that your coach is actually setting with your team, and again, when you're just hot like that, it's like, all right, now we could build with something. And Kansas, I mean, nobody expected them to win this many games. So I mean, just for them to win 3 games is
mm-hmm,
huge.
mm-hmm.
So for them to be a competitive contender in the Big 12, which has an Oklahoma that is still great, and they have obviously just the Big 12 isn't, I mean, it's not the SEC, but to be competing in that
Yeah,
sense, again, just like we've been talking about all season about this Kansas, and they've been overachieving, which is always good. And I think they're capitalizing on the momentum that they have. So
yeah, and in this game, uh, this will tell you it right here. Kansas 112 rushing yards. They held Iowa State to 26.
sheesh,
So
26, man, that's
26,
lights out defense.
right? And and this is with Iowa, winning in the time of possession, gaining more first downs. So Kansas finds a way to pull a close one out. And I think that's important for a team like Kansas,
Yeah,
right? For a team that,
hundred
like I
percent.
said, the offense has been clicking. Can they win when things get ugly? And
Right,
they just showed they can.
and it's like throughout the season they have a win like that. They have a win that's a blowout win. They have in again in those scenarios, it's like that's what you want to see. That's what you really see in a team. You could be in Alabama, just blow out a bunch of culinary schools, and it's like, okay, you're not really tested until you hit those SEC opponents. But a team like this, it's like, all right, we want to see how they handle adversity, how they come back, if they're able to put up points, blow out teams, and build on that and not blow leads or even come back or whatever the case is. And that's why I think most people are surprised with the result of Kansas this season and just them winning all of these games, which is like, again, nobody's expected them to do that. They're
Right.
they're shocking pretty much all of college football scene. I don't like nobody expected this at all.
Yeah, and I think there's been talk about it, but they are now a legitimate threat to win that conference. I think just their body of work so far,
Mm,
you can't count them out. And right, they're gonna, like we said, the Big 12, a lot of good teams there.
right.
So they're certainly going to be tested, and but they're certainly in the mix with a bunch of those other teams now,
Yeah.
and they were certainly not in that
They're
conversation to start the
yes.
year.
So for I think their odds to actually win the Big 12 is like plus 3,000.
Yeah.
And imagine taking like I don't know what their odds for like winning however many games. I think it was like maybe they possibly win over 4, but it's like, man, to take plus 3,000 right now, they look like they're on the roll. They look like they can
Hmm.
compete with every team in their conference. It's like, if you want to throw down some money on that, then by all
Yeah,
means.
and we should actually probably check and see what the odds were
Imagine
For Kansas to win the Big 12 before the season started.
probably like
Yeah, probably like 30,000 or something
30,000.
like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, the fun story with Kansas. Um, we'll move on here to some ACC play, and we had a ranked matchup with number 10 North Carolina State going to number 5 Clemson. This one was a big game for Clemson. It's a big game for North Carolina State too.
No,
This is a game that a lot of people kind of looked at as maybe what could decide this conference and who comes out of it. Clemson comes away with a win here. DJ shows us a little bit more, right? Maybe not quite.
not as much as you want to see as a
Yeah,
coach.
he's not. He didn't show what you wanted to see based on his pedigree and his peers and who you might have compared him to before this season or last season. But he
Right.
certainly showed that he is a capable quarterback. He can run that offense. He can get some things done, and you know, for if you're Clemson, right, it kind of pushed away that whole Clay Klubnik is coming. When is Clay Klubnik gonna play? Now
Right.
you kind of DJ. I mean, unless he goes the opposite direction, but with his play and his playing the game like this, he kind
Right.
of cemented that he is the starter
He's the
unless
guy right
something
now.
goes wrong, and it is his team. So yeah, but yeah, Clemson, they win 30-20 against probably the best defense they'll face all year, at least in during the regular season.
Right.
And and look, it's tough to win in Clemson, right? They have that crazy home winning streak.
Yeah.
Really tough to beat them there, and they find a way to get it done against an experienced North Carolina State team with a solid veteran quarterback, a good defense. So definitely a nice test
Yeah.
for Clemson, and something that I'm sure they're happy
They're
about
happy
passing
about.
that test.
Yeah, and I think it's also like a testament to, maybe it is better off if Kate Klubnik just sits out for a little bit, tries to learn the offense. I'm sure he'll get reps regardless, and it may not be so much of, oh yeah, we're gonna replace DJ, but let's get him out, let's get him some game time, let's get him some experience, aside from practice, and see where he stands. And again, you want to get these quarterbacks ready for once DJ leaves or once the next quarterback leaves. So I think Dabo's gonna do what he's gonna do. At the end of the day, he's built a phenomenal program with Clemson, so that'll eventually shape out. But I think they did play a good game. It was kind of slow in the beginning, but it turned out to be what it was, and Clemson took care of business. But again, you kind of like, if Clemson versus a Georgia team or versus an Alabama team in the playoffs or even an Ohio State team, it's like there can't be any like, all right, let's wait until DJ wakes up. There may be a situation where Dabo pulls a Nick Saban and goes, you know what, Jalen, you're out. Tua, get in and finish business. And that may happen. That may happen
Hmm.
also.
Yeah.
But again, that's to be determined, and that's even if Clemson is able to make the playoffs this year. So we'll see how that ends up.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, let's talk about some overrated teams and some underrated teams here. Um, in the just how they've been doing this season. We're 5 weeks in, and some definitely some overrated teams to me would be Oklahoma State, which and I don't mean overrated in terms of their their rank right now is not warranted because they've certainly put together the body of work to be where they're at.
Right.
But I just don't really see Oklahoma State finishing the season
Being like a top
a
ranked
top
team.
10
Yeah, I don't
team, a top
either.
15 team. I think all praise to them for doing what they're doing.
But they'll eventually
Yeah,
fall a few ranks.
and
And
we always talk about the gauntlet of the SEC schedule, but the Big 12 this year with a lot of parity there, they're due to have some losses, some close games, and I just don't see them kind of finishing the year at where they're at. I think there should be some expectation for them to maybe drop a few games and still be one of the better teams in
Yeah, I
that
think
Big
they could
12.
still
But
be a good team in the
yeah,
Big 12, but I don't think I don't think they should be regarded to the rank that they're at now. And
yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
like time will tell. They still have some Big 12 opponents to face. We still have a lot of football to be played. Um and it's right now it's the beginning of October, so that's kind of like we're transitioning into where football is going to really start being played. And we're going to really start to see who's who and what teams are really what teams. So, I think that's a team. I think we could both agree with that with Oklahoma State and being maybe a little bit overrated.
Yeah, and I'd probably put Penn State in somewhat of the same category, right? I mean, they've come away with wins and they certainly deserve to be a higher ranked team. But looking ahead at the rest of their schedule and um, you know, what the rest of the Big Ten is shaking up to be and just the landscape of college football, I don't see them finishing as a top 10 or top 15 ranked team either.
Right.
I think they showed plenty of promise, right? They've had some blowout wins, but they've also had some wins that
Some
were
close ones
some
too.
close wins, and it's like you do want that as a team to give you experience to show that you could win in a gritty close game,
Right.
but I just don't see
There's no
offense.
like
Their offense just isn't consistent enough for me.
Yeah, and there's no like true game changer on their offense to where it's like, all right, we like it's just like you said, it's inconsistent. So it's kind of like you don't know if their offense is gonna trend up one week or if they're gonna be like just firing on all pistons. Like you just really don't know. So I think it's a good take. And then like they still have to face a lot of good Big Ten
Right.
opponents.
You still got to
So
go
it's
against
like you
Michigan
struggled
and
against
Ohio State.
Northwestern,
Yeah.
right? And how are you gonna be matched up with Ohio State, with Michigan? And it's like those are powerhouse offenses that you're gonna have to face and that you're gonna have to really bring your A game. So it's like, does Penn State bring their A game? Who knows? We'll see. So
Yeah, and we'll talk about some underrated teams as well. And we could start with Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a team that they just had that big win at Texas A&M, and um you know they're a team with a high powered offense. They've already dropped a game, which is a little bit disappointing, but I think overall their team is severely underrated. I mean, here's a team that when you want to talk about the SEC, right, and how hard the schedules are, you see a team like Georgia this past week struggle with a team like Missouri,
right,
and people want to say, "Oh, well, it's the SEC and it's hard," and make excuses, but really Georgia needs to handle business against
Georgia,
a team like
yeah,
Missouri.
and it showed that they're beatable. It
Right.
showed that they have that sense of like, okay, they may have come close and they still got the win, but they're beatable. So
Right, but a team like Mississippi State with their offense and having to go against the same type of schedule, they're not going to come out of their schedule with, almost no losses. They're going to take their losses, but they're going to compete with the best teams in the SEC on a regular basis.
yeah,
And I think they have a shot to win against everyone, right? And um, I just think, looking further down in the season, I think they're going to get some pretty nice wins against some teams that people probably have ranked higher than them at this point. And they have, they'll have a shot. Actually, this week they get to go to LSU. LSU, I think they're ranked number 25 now, but they get to go to LSU and try to get a big win on the road over there in a tough place to play.
yeah. It's always tough to play at LSU, but that'll be a good test. And again, LSU they've also showed some struggle. I mean, they're
Hmm.
under a new coach, and they're still trying to get things together. So I think that'll be a good test for them as well.
Right. And another underrated team I have is Utah. Utah, huge game in week 1 against Florida. Pretty much all of college football was watching that one. Marquee matchup. They lose in a close one in a tough road environment. And I don't think a lot of people really have been paying attention to Utah since then. I've been high on Utah kind of this whole time, and they've just continued to handle
Improve.
business. Right? They
Yeah.
complete team. They play both sides of the ball well. They're going to put up points. They're going to play a hard nosed defense, and altogether they put these complete games together. I think they're as tough to beat as anyone. I think if you look at the Pac-12, they got to be towards the top of people's lists. I know USC has been doing good. You have Oregon there trying to bounce back. Oregon State also making some noise, but that Oregon State team, they go and they play Utah last week, and Utah hammered them.
Yeah.
It was a close spread, and it wasn't close that game.
So do
So
you think so like what do you think with Florida? I mean, do you think that was maybe a fluke or maybe it was
well,
just
I
like
don't
lack of
even I don't think
preparation
it was a
or
fluke. I think um, look, we know when teams play a game, that's one game, right? And so you don't know, nobody knows how they're going to show up
right,
that day. And it could be the coach's
especially week
fault.
1.
It could be just, things don't go their way. But they go into Florida, they played them close, they lost on the
Right.
road in a tough road environment. It happens. These guys, they're all college kids. They're not perfect. They Utah will need to be pretty much perfect the rest of the way if they want to make the playoffs, which they'll have a shot to if they win out, win the Pac-12. I think they'll pretty much cement themselves as a playoff team. But yeah, I think sometimes it happens, right? I mean, we just saw it. Georgia struggled with Missouri. If they would have lost to Missouri, does it mean that all of a sudden they're garbage? No, but it means that probably they should drop in the rankings. You know what I mean? For the time being, and that's
Right.
kind of where they're at. So Utah, they took that loss, they slid in the rankings, but they're handling business, and I think when push comes to shove, when we get towards the end of the year, as opposed to some teams that we mentioned that probably won't be in the top 10 or 15, I think Utah has a
Has a chance
a
of being that and
yeah, pretty good shot of being there, if not even higher, and you know kind of finding their way into that top 4 if
the
they if everything goes their way. Um, yeah, so from here we'll move on to some other topics, and you know, a big thing we saw this week was a lot of talk about what's fair and what's not. Ohio State's punter kind of and you're trained as a rugby punter too. And this was talked about a lot this week. When you see them overloading one side and you kind of move out to get into your kicking motion, if it's free and you could pick up that first down, then to
right.
go pick it up. And this is not something that is discussed all the time. This is kind of just in your preparation. This is kind of the way it goes. He saw
Right.
it, he took it,
And that's that.
and that's that. He gets drilled on the sidelines, late hit, and it turns into a kind of a whole thing
More
with
of
Greg
like a
Schiano
frustration thing
running
and
over from the other sideline to calm his guys down and get them back. We saw exchange of words between the coaches. But yeah, it always, these kind of things always bring up, what is the crossing the line? What are the
unwritten
unspoken
rules.
rules? Yeah,
Yeah.
what is unsportsmanlike when you're playing a team and already winning? And people have different takes on this, but I think it's really tough to nail these type of rules down, especially in a sport like college football. I mean,
Especially in just football in general.
football in general, but especially college football, right? In the NFL, you see a lot closer games. When you do see a blowout, once it's really out of hand, they're just running the ball out. They
Yeah,
they
and
don't
nailing
have
it.
they don't have the amount of players, right? Because they don't have 100 something people that they could choose from.
Right.
You have a lot of
You have a
limits.
53-man
Yeah, you
roster
don't
and
you
that's
don't want
it,
to
really.
you want to get your guys out of there and move on to the next week. There's no rankings. So if you win the game, you win the game. That's it.
That's
That's all
it.
that matters. In college, winning the game is not just winning the game.
Yeah, it's everything.
If you win the game and you're leaving it closer than people thought it should be,
Then that's gonna be
it's going to be
chink
used
in your
against
armor,
you,
yeah.
and you're going to slide down the rankings, and that could affect where you are at the end of the year. Right?
So I think so I think just with that being said, it's kind of like I think unwritten rules go right out the window. And with everything that we see blowouts like 70-14. So it's like just because you're more of a big time school and maybe your players are just that much better, it's like you have to do what you have to do. And if you want to teach your kids any lessons, you want to teach your players any lessons, go out there and stop them. Yeah. And again, it's tough because it's like, yeah, if you're up and you're they're running up the score, then it's like it's very debilitating because it's like, all right, we just want to go home at this point. Like you guys are just scoring it up, doing whatever you guys want to do, but again, it just goes to show like, yeah, there's no participation trophies. This isn't like, oh, good luck, good job, Billy, whatever the case is. But it's like, at least win the quarter. Like, if you're getting blown out, say, for example, like 49 to like maybe 24, at least go into the fourth quarter being like, okay, we're getting blown out right now, but let's beat them this quarter. So at least we can build on that into the next game. Right. And it's like, come on, man. Like you're competing. This is college football. You know the circumstances. You know how important it is to blow out teams. If you don't, then obviously they're gonna look at that. And when it comes to the college football playoffs, and it's like you have to do what you have to do at the end of the day. And as a coach, you should understand another coach coming from that. So.
Yeah, and also you should also understand that like we talked about the rugby style punters, that is what they're going to do. If you set up, right? So this is the funny part. They come in and they load up to try to block the punt.
Right.
So you're clearly trying, and that's fine. You should try.
Right.
But then it can't be a one-way street here, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to do whatever you can to get back in the game, then as my, if I'm a coach,
I'm not going to just coach up my kids.
Yeah, I'm just not going to let you do that, right? And so now this guy makes a play that he's taught to do, and it comes off as bad sportsmanship. Oh, why would you run a fake punt? Well, we didn't run a fake punt. You guys mismanaged how you were going to attack this particular play on special teams, and he took advantage the way that he was taught to, right? So,
that's part of the problem.
It's a two-way street. Like we said, in college it's hard, a lot harder than the NFL in terms of the whole sportsmanship thing. You have teams that have no business being on the same field as each other a lot of times playing, and you're gonna have this type of thing. But when you play against better teams,
you have to find a way.
Yeah, you gotta find a way, and you can't get upset about these kind of things. If you can use it as a teaching moment. For your kids, so that way when you do play, competition that's more your level, that we saw this before, right? Against these guys, right? So, definitely, definitely just something that people have to learn to live with, and sometimes people just get frustrated. It's hard dealing with a loss like that,
especially when you're getting blown out.
And I think if you caught these coaches that we've seen over the years get upset in these points. Probably if you talk to them, the week before and ask them about some of these situations, they would be like, yeah, you have to do what you got to do and whatever. But in the heat of the moment, it definitely gets a little bit frustrating. But, we'll move on here and we'll talk about some Heisman odds this far through the season. These Heisman odds, they've changed a little bit as we've went through, but still, the Stroud, who kind of came in as the favorite, the front runner and the favorite, is still leading with plus 150. Jamison Williams here is now second at plus 400, with Bryce Young following at plus 900. This is probably and mostly due to this injury scare that we've seen here.
And one game can just completely
Yeah.
just change your resume for getting Heisman. So
Yeah, so that knocks Bryce Young down a bit, and then it gets rounded out with Hendon Hooker plus 1,300 and Stetson Bennett at plus 1,600. So, just always interesting to keep an eye on this. Stroud, like I said, clearly the front runner, and Ohio State, out of all the top teams, just by and large has seemed like the one with the least questions.
yeah,
Their biggest trouble was really against Notre Dame in the first game of the year, but
and that could just be
yeah,
first game
it
like
kind of seemed like just first game,
struggles and
struggles.
just getting on the same page.
They've had issues with JSN staying on the field since then. They had Mayan Williams stepping up and kind of um, you know playing a huge role in the run game with Trevion Henderson being injured. Their other wide receivers have been stepping up after kind of getting able to be on the same page with Stroud. So now, and their defense, by the way, top 10
Mm,
through the weeks, through the first few weeks this year,
right.
which is huge for them because that was kind of the biggest question to see if they were going to be, really ready to take that step to be in the conversation to win a national championship, and now they're kind of showing that. So, yeah, I don't think you could look at it another way at this point. With Stroud being the favorite, I don't think anybody else could really sit in that
Come close to
position.
that
But
right now.
definitely still a long way to go, and
Still a lot of football to be played.
yeah, a lot of football left to be played, and still plenty of times for people to have some Heisman moments or do some real special things on the football field.
Yeah, and I think another thing you have to look at as well is, we also like you also have SC. SC is trending upward and they're
Hmm.
starting to play well. Their offense looks stellar. I mean, their defense has a lot of questions still. It seems like not much has changed from last year, but again, when you have a great offense, you can lean on having maybe a little bit of a poor defense. So I think Caleb is also somebody that you can consider. He's playing great at quarterback right now. Some of the things that stand out, just in college with such a fast paced kind of thing where it's like, okay, go to your first read, fast paced RPO. Let's go. Let's pick up the speed so we can get as many possessions as possible, put up as much points on the board as possible. With Caleb, I mean sometimes that's the case, but with Caleb, you could tell like he goes through his progressions. You can tell he climbs the pocket. He does the things that you would want an NFL quarterback to do. So, I mean, he's not somebody that we spoke about often yet, but I think as time goes on in the season, that'll be a name that comes up and a name that we would have to respect for that Heisman trophy, obviously at the end of the day. But yeah, I think he's playing great football right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we'll move on now to some previews of some upcoming games this week. We'll start this off with Alabama again. They're going to Texas A&M this week on the road, and they're coming in at a 23.5 point spread as a favorite. This is a game that I think people were probably hoping where it's going to be a little bit more of a marquee matchup if Texas A&M was kind of
What they're
taking
supposed to
taking
be.
care of business more and being what people thought they would be. They haven't yet, but this is still an interesting game. We know that last year Texas A&M beat Alabama. We have all the off-season drama with Saban and Jimbo Fisher. So this one will be an interesting one. I think this spread is sitting at 23.5, probably because of, you know, they probably look at this game as a game that Alabama's going to come out. Saban's going to have his guys dialed up, fired up, ready to
Yeah,
go,
and
and out for blood here.
yeah, and Texas A&M's clearly struggled. They clearly, and you can't again. There's very little margin of error you have to when you're playing against an Alabama team, and you have to put up points. That's something that Alabama is no matter what they're gonna put out points. They're gonna have a stellar defense. Texas A&M, they have to bring it. They have to figure something out because I mean, granted, they pulled away with some wins throughout the season, but there's a reason for a 23.5 spread. I mean, that doesn't come across every SEC opponent. Um, Jimbo has to somehow get these players ready, and I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going on with Texas A&M, but if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm comfortable with the 23.5 point spread.
Yeah, if you're Texas A&M, you got to look at it like, okay, how we win is keeping it close, um, trying to hold that time of possession, which is hard against Alabama. One of the best rushing defenses. We saw what they just did to Arkansas, but
Yeah, they just starched Arkansas.
yeah, and that was on the road at Arkansas as well. This time, if you're Texas A&M, I think you probably got a bit more of a home field advantage in Arkansas, right? That's probably one of the better places that you'd want to play as a home team. Incredible energy over there. The fans go crazy, but yeah, I mean, I think like you said, you gotta probably look at this game as probably being able to cover that spread as Alabama, knowing the history and how Saban is going to have his guys ready to roll. This looks like it's probably going to be a statement game, if not just for the whole offseason drama between the two coaches.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Just
that's a whole that's
it's
a whole nother
it's
factor of it.
but
So
even more so, just that these guys beat them last year and they know they can't slip up. And we
right,
know this Alabama team, it's mostly guys who are returning and are now more senior players. They're going to
they
be
have
ready
that
to go.
experience. They want
Yeah,
vengeance, and
yeah,
they'll definitely play for Saban. They're gonna play hard for Saban no matter what. So
yeah.
that's definitely another factor.
We'll move on to another game. Um, this one, you know, similar to kind of what happened with Texas A&M, lost a little bit of a lust of its luster with both teams not being ranked at the moment. Texas versus Oklahoma, Red River rivalry, always a huge game every year. Uh, this, yeah, both teams slip out of the rankings. Both teams have quarterbacks that we don't know if the starters are going to play,
Right.
but this game never disappoints. We remember, the fireworks last year. Texas right now, they opened at favored by 4.5. It's up to -7 now.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and this is probably more towards speculation. It's kind of looking like there's a decent chance Quinn Ewers might
Ewers plays.
play,
Yeah.
and also some uncertainty whether Dylan Gabriel is going to play for the Sooners. But yeah, I mean, this game, another similarity with the last game. Texas remembers losing to Oklahoma last year.
Right. And now
Um,
Oklahoma, they've lost a lot since
right.
then. So
Yeah, and
and
so
Texas seemed to get better.
and Texas, we remember that Alabama game. They played them real close. They have the firepower. So yeah, this is a game where I can see Texas. Maybe this game is kind of one of those games where it's close earlier on, but I think once you get to the second half, this is where potentially Texas can really just pull away and use the fact that they have the better offense. Oklahoma's defense has been looking shaky this year. Their offense as well. The past few weeks, ever since their win at Nebraska, it's been a bit of a dip for them. Oklahoma, if they can't find their run game and really chew this out, hold time of possession, really
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
gonna be
dominate
tough for them.
there, it's gonna be tough. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we'll move on to another game. This time we'll go out to the Pac-12. Two ranked teams in Utah and UCLA. This is at UCLA, but Utah comes in the favor here, -4.5. Utah team we talked about earlier as a kind of a bit of an underrated team after their lone loss to Florida, but they've been pretty much handling everyone in their path since. UCLA, I actually like UCLA this year. I think they've been doing a lot of good things. Solid quarterback in Dorian Thompson Robinson, and Chip Kelly has those guys ready. I think the problem is one, they're playing at home and their home environment is horrible. Nobody is going to those games over there. I mean, the stands are empty, and
Nah,
it's because where they play is so far away from you know from their campus. Traffic, it's a nightmare over there in
yeah, it's
LA.
really
So
tough.
it's tough over there right now. But yeah, so one, they don't have a great home environment to give them any sort of advantage. And two, Utah is just kind of rolling over everyone right now. Um, I don't really see this to be that much different. I think Utah is going to cover this spread no problem, and I think for UCLA it'll be a loss, but I still think they're a good team and they'll be able
They'll be able to
to
compete.
yeah they'll be able to bounce back and keep on you know gearing up towards that end of the season and stay in that race to kind of try to shoot for that Pac-12 championship.
Nah.
We'll move on now to best bets for the week, and we'll start it off with a ranked matchup, an SEC matchup in number 8 Tennessee going to number 25 LSU. We kind of talked a little bit about LSU earlier, and they have that home environment there. The place is going to be rocking. They have Tennessee coming in, and Tennessee. I mean, look, they never lack talent, right? When you look at NFL players, it's dominated by number one Alabama, number two Ohio State, number three is LSU players in the NFL, which is, you know, on one hand, yeah, they've won some national championships lately, but
Right.
it's like the years that they haven't
They've
been
been very
that good
like
all the time,
mediocre.
right? So
Yeah.
they've had a lot of ups and downs in that program, but they never lack for talent. And they've been even up and down this year, right? But they have a team coming into their house. They just got ranked. They're number 25 now. And but yeah, I mean that Tennessee team, their defense has been, solid enough for them, and their offense is
Yeah, Hooker's playing great. So
yeah. So they're putting up points. They're finding ways to win. This one was started out at 4.5 points. It's kind of been bet down. Tennessee now favored by 2.5. Um, I like Tennessee at 4.5. So obviously I like them at 2.5 here.
right.
I think they're going to be able to go into LSU and get the job done. I think LSU I just, unless LSU finds a way to kind of win the same way that um, LSU lost earlier in the season, where you're messing up on special teams and,
Yeah, you're just making like
yeah, a lot of things just
mistakes,
kind of
mental
go your
mistakes.
way. Unless LSU has that kind of game for themselves, I don't see how they're going to contain LSU's offense enough or be able to keep up with contain Tennessee's offense enough or keep up with it.
Yeah.
So I just think Tennessee at the end of the day is going to put up two more points than LSU is going to be able to.
Right.
And so yeah, I don't see them being able to slow them down enough. So I love Tennessee here at -2.5. I think this line moved in the right direction if you want to get some action on this one. Um, we'll move on to Utah, a game that we just talked about earlier. Utah at UCLA. I like Utah here. This one started at -3. It's now -4.5. Obviously, I like -3 better, but if you can get it for 4.5, I still think that
That's pretty
Utah's gonna.
solid.
I think Utah's gonna win by
At least a touchdown.
yeah, I think they're gonna win by more than a touchdown, but I'd be comfortable with anything up to -7 here. So I like Utah to kind of really handle business against a good UCLA team, but just I just think they're gonna be too much for them. We'll move on to our next best bet, and that is number 17 TCU versus number 19 Kansas. Kansas is at home here, but they are the underdogs. Started at +6.5. You can now find it a half a point up at +7. I just think for a Kansas team that hasn't lost yet,
Yeah, and
I
they're rallying. So
they're yeah, I just don't see any reason to jump off this train yet. And you're giving me points, and they're the home team.
yeah,
You know,
that's something I would
this
take any day.
I'll take this, and if they lose, you have a decent chance if they still cover anyways. But I'll take it, right? And I think Kansas has could win this game outright. So um, yeah, I'll take Kansas here for +7 at home against a TCU team. And then for our last best bet, we'll go out west again, and we have Fresno State against Boise State. Fresno State, man, they were a pretty good team last year. They were a bit more disappointing this year now with the injury to their quarterback.
Right.
They just really haven't been looking good. Boise State, you know, they haven't been looking as great
Great
as
either.
as people might have thought either this year. I mean, they started the year with Oregon State. Oregon State, who is a team now that we know is a lot better than people thought, but yeah, I think Boise State here is the better team. I think just without their quarterback, Fresno State can't keep up, and you know I like Boise State -7 at home against a Fresno State team that has some weapons, but quarterback play is just going to hold them back, and I don't see Fresno State being able
To keep up with them.
to keep up with them. But yeah, I mean we'll move on and let's talk about some NFL and some things going on now after another week of a lot of football.
Yeah. So a lot of great games for NFL. We had a big game which I think should have been a primetime game in the Bills and the Ravens game. It was pretty early. I mean, it was nice that it was early because then we don't have to wait all day for it and watch a bunch of other football games that may not be too interesting. But Bills Ravens, the Bills come out on top. They beat the Ravens 23-20, and lot of questions, a lot of drama in that game, a lot of things to talk about. We could get into it first with the whole should they may have kicked the field goal at the end of that drive in the fourth quarter, 4 minutes left to go, or do they do what they do and play it aggressive with Lamar and just put the cards in his hands and let him just go to work. But I mean, overall, like starting out, I mean, as a Ravens fan myself, it was phenomenal to just see them just blow them out. It was 20-3 at some point, and it's like at that point, I was like, all right, I could watch different games, relax a little bit, and not be so tied into the game. But again, Josh Allen just showed resiliency. He showed, all right, let's just take it one drive at a time. Let's just get some points while we can. And a big part of this whole game getting out of hand, I think, was before the first half. They let a touchdown, like there was a 2-minute drive. Josh Allen drove down the field. They instead of letting a field goal, even that you don't want to give up a field goal. But again, it's tough to give up a complete touchdown and then go back into the half and give them the ball back. So
Yeah, and this is a game that we actually kind of talked about this on Sunday. It's a tough loss if for the Ravens because they were up 20-3 in this game. But man, the Bills, I mean, the Bills might be the best team in the NFL right now. Solid all around, offense and defense. And they find a way to come back and win this game. Um, you know, it was not great conditions. It was, wet and muggy outside, and the Ravens really took advantage of that in the first half. The Bills were able to strike back with that touchdown to kind of end the half and go into the second half, being able to build on something.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, whatever decisions they made, I think you got to live with it as a Ravens fan and say, hey, we were up. There were some positives and that you were up on maybe the best team in the NFL. What can you do to improve so that way
It doesn't
so
happen
you
again.
don't blow that lead again? Luckily, this is the regular season. This is a team that decent chance you might run into in the postseason. You saw what they can do. You also know that you can handle business yourself, right? They were able to defensively hold up against them. I mean, really, especially the first quarter, the Bills couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, the Bills they were struggling. The Ravens defense looked stellar. I think what the Ravens do need to work on though is being a one. I mean, you have to be able to close out games. This is the second game, and it's literally only week 4. So it's like you blew 2 games. You did hypothetically speaking, the Ravens could be 4-0 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Had they not blown that game against the Dolphins, and had they not blown this game, and it's like outside of the whole decision at the end of the game, whether you go for a field goal and you trust your defense, or whether you put the ball in Lamar's hands and you let him get to work, at the end of the day, it shouldn't have come down to you guys don't put up any points in the fourth quarter. You guys don't put up any points at all once it's the second half, and it's like, I mean, again, it's hats off to the Bills defense, but I mean, it's kind of unacceptable if you want to be a Super Bowl. If you want to be a Super Bowl contender, you can't just go
Yeah,
blank in the second
you can't
half.
you can't do that, especially when you're at home.
And my thing
Um,
is like you have Justin Tucker. You know you're 9 times out of 10 you're gonna make that field goal, and Harbaugh spoke about, and it's kind of annoying that Harbaugh is getting a bunch of flack because it's like he's not. At the end of the day, you want to trust your quarterback, you want to trust your offense, but he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to put the ball in Lamar's hand, let him make something happen. Didn't happen. He stepped back like maybe 20 or maybe 15, 20 yards before he made a throw where it's like he had a clean pocket, could have stepped into the pocket, maybe ran it in, or like which is what he's more comfortable with, or make the right pass. But yeah, I mean, just take the points. Take the points. Trust your defense. Although they haven't been playing great in the second half, that's something that you have to really like just put a staple on it. Like, all right, like he's shown time and time again he trusts Lamar. So at this time that all right, I trust my guys on defense, and it didn't happen, and obviously the end result was the Bills in 23-20. But I mean that's part of the reality that that he has to live with, and that he has to maybe adjust and further in the future games that they have. So we'll see what happens though. So next up, we have the Chiefs and the Bucks. That was a pretty like just fireworks and offense kind of game. The Bucks obviously showed a little bit of struggle. The Chiefs came out on top, and Mahomes was able to tie up that series with Brady, and now they're in a 3-3 kind of matchup. So,
yeah,
what's your thoughts on that
yeah. I
game?
mean, you know, this was the Chiefs were on the road here. They roll into Tampa, and man, Mahomes just had a bunch of moments in this game, like just Mahomes type of
Spinning
things,
and
right? I
yeah,
mean, he's just spinning and tossing balls and and they're just getting touchdowns no matter what he
yeah. It's
does.
just
And
like
I mean, look, you put up 41 against a Bucks defense. That's a pretty good defense.
yeah. I mean, they've been like I'm pretty sure they're the number one defense in points allowed. So
Well,
or
they're not
number,
anymore
yeah.
after
Well,
giving up
after that,
41. But
they
going
definitely
in,
are.
yeah, they
But
were definitely a high ranked defense. And Mahomes and the Chiefs come in. Kelsey does what he does, right? And they have things clicking on all cylinders. And Brady, he played a decent game, but when you playing down and always trying to come back, it just
yeah,
puts
it's
a,
a
a
lot
lot,
more
lot of
pressure.
pressure on the quarterback. They were still able to make some plays and make things happen, but just fall back with too much of a hole to climb out of. And really, this game finished 41-31. It was a little bit uh not as close as what that score
As what it
suggests
says,
if
yeah.
it wasn't for some late scores by the Bucks here. So
It's kind of weird too because like, well, not weird, but it's interesting to see how Pat Mahomes is adjusting without a Tyreek Hill, because obviously I think if you're a franchise and you're asked, do you want Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce? I think more often than not, GMs would rather take Travis Kelce because it's a lot more. You get a lot more from running and run blocking, and you obviously get the receiving end. And he's just a stellar tight end. He's shifty. He does what he does, but not being able to have that vertical threat, not being able to take the top off of the defense and open up a lot more in the middle and open up a lot more on the outside of the numbers, it leaves a lot to determine for Pat Mahomes. And throughout this season, he's shown like he can make progressions, he can go through progressions, take his time, and it seems like, I mean, obviously last game there was a lot of like spinning around, a lot of improvising, but you can see he's going through progressions. He's actually going through reads. He's taking his time stepping into the pocket rather than rolling out, scrambling. And again, there's nothing wrong with scrambling, but as a head coach or as a GM, you literally want your quarterback to stay safe by all means as much as he can, and just let his playmakers make plays. And it seems like that's what he's doing this season, which is great to see considering he doesn't have Tyreek.
yeah, and I think obviously they knew coming into the season they didn't have Tyreek anymore, and I think you got to give a lot of praise to Andy Reid for making things easy and finding ways to get and scheme other guys open. So it's not that you feel such a drop off without having that great playmaker in Tyreek Hill, that you're able to utilize the weapons that you have and still put your offense in position to succeed. And Patrick Mahomes does a lot, but sometimes as a coach, you do have to make it easy for some guys, and don't make it hard if you don't have to. And I think Andy Reid has shown offensively he's able to find ways to create mismatches, put guys in space, and take advantage of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think he's just a great offensive mind, and that's the benefit of having him as a head coach. And moving on to another great offensive mind, I mean, it didn't translate in the game that just transpired with the 49ers and the Rams. Sean McVay and the Rams, they seem to struggle a little bit against obviously the 49ers. It seems to be their kryptonite. They only beat them last year in the playoffs. They got swept in the series last year, and the way that it looked last night, it does look like they're trending in the same direction. Again, there's still a lot of questions going on, but the Niners took care of business 24-9. They were able to run the ball, utilize the run, just rally against the Rams, and they were able to do what they had to do. And with the Rams, what seems to be the thing is just get the ball to Cooper Kupp, let him go to work, and let's see what we could do. Um, they're incorporating their run a little bit more, and they're incorporating Allen Robinson a little bit more. But again, the absence of Odell, the absence of
Robert Woods.
Robert Woods, and just not being able to have those kind of weapons, it kind of restricts Matthew Stafford a little bit. And then the 49ers, they played great on defense. They played great on offense. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's picking it up again. He didn't have OTAs with them because I don't think he anticipated on staying with them. I think everybody at the end of the season pretty much thought that was Jimmy G's last game, and the decision was made. Trey Lance is the guy. Trey Lance goes down, Jimmy G steps up, and um he's just looked great. He looked great last night. So
Yeah, I mean, for the 49ers, this is a really great win. They were able to, they had the Rams come into their building, and they kind of they kind of won in almost every aspect of this game. I mean, the Rams are a team that, you know, they just haven't looked the same as they did last year. Pretty
yeah.
much this whole season, right? I mean, you come in, you get blown out by the Bills in the second half of your first game. you win a closer game against the Falcons. I mean, the Rams, they just don't look the same as last year. It's probably because, as you mentioned, the lack of some of those weapons coming back. Matt Stafford also just looks like he's not the
He's not
same
healthy right now.
quarterback right now. We saw him throw that pick at the end of that game,
Yeah, that was
and
just
McVay was like, said something along the lines of, "Did you forget?" Like almost like if he wasn't supposed to throw that pass in that situation, like he was supposed to either check to something else or go somewhere else with the ball.
right.
And you know, but what's funny is going into this game, I looked at the stats this year, and I looked and I see the 49ers, you know, one of the best defensive teams. I think they were like second best in pass offense,
Right.
right? I think they were best in rush offense. I'm sorry, pass. They were second best in pass defense, number one in rush offense coming into this game. I'm looking at this game. The Rams don't run the ball, right? They
Yeah.
haven't been effective all year, and a team that's supposed to be one of the more prolific passing offenses hasn't
They
really
really
been. They're
haven't
more
been that.
middle of the pack this year. So I was like, oh, this is kind of a no brainer. This seems like at home, the 49ers should take this game and win it no problem. And that's exactly what this
That's
turned out
exactly
to
what
be.
happened.
And, like you said, Jimmy G looked good. You know, they had a over under Jimmy G pass yards. I took the under on the most, right? 230. Jimmy G goes over, right?
Yeah.
Partially due to, Debo having some big plays, catching the ball when they're going for picks and he takes it to the house and things like that. But man,
And
the
I think he's
49ers
just
just
getting
played a great
started.
game.
Yeah, the 49, you know what I like about the 49ers? I like that, and this is where it's kind of, I mean, it's obviously they jumped up to get Trey Lance, but it's like they rally with Jimmy Garoppolo. You can see the body language of every teammate. Debo Samuels, he obviously loves Jimmy G. Um, George Kittle, basically almost the whole team, and it's like when you have that, that's kind of like an it factor. And I think Jimmy G is, I mean, he also, you have to realize, like, he went against a great defense last week against the Broncos. Um, he had very little time to prepare with this team. He didn't anticipate it. I'm sure he anticipated on being traded prior to the season, and then on top of that, it's like he did have surgery. So it's like to come back from that surgery, it takes some time to get accommodating to. And I think Jimmy G is he's gonna progress. He's gonna have some games here and there where there'll be some struggle, but it's good to see the Rams. I mean, not the Rams. It's good to see the Niners back in competition and possibly be divisional winners. Who knows? I mean, we don't know what the outcome could be. So moving on, we have some teams that we have trending upward and things like that, and just so
Yeah. Some kind of overrated teams. Well, I guess we'll start out with is some teams with kind of some more hype around them coming into the year, or maybe even sometimes still lingering. But yeah, I mean, right now it kind of looks like the Broncos and similarly the Vikings are a bit overrated for the type of output that they're putting out right now.
right.
The Broncos, a lot of hype around Russ, and they kind of squeak out a last second win against the 49ers last week.
Right.
They lose on the road in the beginning of the season to the Seahawks.
Seahawks, yeah.
This Broncos team, I just think they need to do something
I
because
feel
their
like
offense
Russ
is
just
just
isn't
not clicking.
comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's memes about oh, this is what happens with the Broncos letting Russ cook, and it's like people like burning up their kitchen. Yeah, it's not good. And luckily for the Broncos, they are able to find ways to win some of these games, so they're not like in a huge hole here
Yeah.
where it's not like their season is over or whatever, and they have time to figure this thing out and get on the right track. But yeah, they really need to show some more. And then with the Vikings, um, their offense has looked great at times. I mean, just fantastic. But we also see him on another team with memes. I mean, they go against the Eagles, and you know, Kirk Cousins in
It's
prime
just
time games, and oh, turn off the lights, turn off the lights, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is with them. They're such a weird team in terms of they could play great one week and then the next week
they're just an
they're just
average, like,
flat,
yeah, it's weird
yeah, we see them go to London. They just beat a Saints team.
that they should have blown out.
Yeah, they should have been able
There's been
to
no
win by 10 plus
Camara.
points there with a
Yeah,
backup quarterback and a lot of things going on, and
there's
it's
a
like
lot of miscues with what I've noticed because I watched that game that morning, and there's a lot of miscues with Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, where there's times where Justin Jefferson is on an island and Kirk Cousins doesn't read. I don't know if he doesn't read it correctly, if he doesn't see him. I personally don't know what it is, but it's kind of like the Vikings, they have to be careful with this situation because Justin Jefferson is playing lights out. Regardless of the quarterback situation, he's open, he makes great routes. He has clean routes, he has great hands, he's a stellar player, and it's like you don't want another Stephon Diggs happening where Stephon Diggs is like, see you later, Adam Thielen. I'm out of here. I need a real quarterback. I can't deal with this.
yeah, and it's crazy to say considering the type of numbers that Justin Jefferson has put up already this year.
Right.
I mean, he's had some huge games, and they partially because they just throw the ball so much. So
No.
I think a player like that is just really
It's
gonna
gonna
get his numbers.
right.
But yeah, Kirk Cousins. I mean, he needs to make some better decisions, and he's an interesting guy because he kind of has the talent to make all the throws. Right? You can't sit here and say something along the lines of, well, Kirk Cousins is he just can't get me the ball. He doesn't have the talent. No, it's his decision making. It's his timing. It's his just weird inability to kind of rise to the occasion in big
Yeah, he
games.
just doesn't have. I just don't think he has that it factor as
Yeah,
a quarterback that you need. I think another overrated team we could kind of just brush over a little bit is the Colts. The Colts, they haven't been able to get another big quarterback change. They haven't been able to
yeah,
get on pace. Matt Ryan at times looks like he's on the tail end of his career, and it sucks to see because I think he's a great quarterback, and we both watched him in Boston College. We watched the beginning stages of Atlanta when he was playing with Tony Gonzalez. He had the whole Matty Ice situation. I think he'll get back on track, but it's just really disappointing considering their additions with him, with Stephon Gilmore, and again, Jonathan Taylor is not getting many touches. It's like if it's not broken, don't like. I mean, if it like, don't break it. Like let Jonathan Taylor do what he does. Open up the pass offense. Open up the play action, and possibly be able to get some connection with Michael Pittman, whatever the case is. So
yeah. It's tough with the Colts. There's really no rhyme or reason for why it just doesn't seem to be working.
no,
A lot of people had some high hopes for the Colts. The past few years they kind of been this kind of in between team, and then you
because of the
see them.
quarterback play.
Then they have Matt Ryan now. You would think okay, he's not like the greatest quarterback or one of the greatest quarterbacks at this stage of his career, but he's a solid veteran quarterback, proven professional, can make the throws. It doesn't translate. It's not translating. They can't get their running game going. Their
Right.
defense isn't holding up, even after spending a bunch of money on it to
Yeah.
improve it. And last year they weren't a horrible
They were
defense.
pretty good last year on
So now
defense.
you would think you add some more players, you get the off season, you get them acclimated, you have them ready to go. But yeah, they just haven't been able to really find their stride yet, struggling with teams that should be inferior opponents to them. So yeah, definitely another overrated team so far. But we could move into some underrated teams. And yeah, I mean, we could start off with the
The
Seahawks right now,
Seahawks,
right?
man.
The Seahawks, man, coming into this season, I don't think anybody would think Geno Smith was putting up the points that he's putting up this
No, I
year.
don't think so either.
I mean,
And
he's had other games where it's like, oh yeah, he's still Geno,
right,
right? But then he comes right back this week,
man, listen,
48 points against the Lions.
48 points. That's crazy.
Man,
Russ
man.
Russ warmed up the grill so Gino could cook. I mean, Gino, he's playing lights out, man. I think, I don't think Gino's a horrible quarterback. I also don't think he's great, but he's
Mhm.
sustainable right now. And I think also you have to kind of look at it in a sense of like, look at the organization he was with. He was with the Jets at the time. They had some coaching changes. There was a lot of inconsistency. You figure he sits behind Russ for I think 2 years. He's been in Seattle. I'm sure he's learned a lot from Russ. I'm sure he's learned a lot from Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll is just a great. He's just not going to back down. He's not somebody that's like, okay, we're in a rebuilding stage. He wants to win now. So I love it. I love the fact that the Seahawks are playing great. I love the fact that Geno's kind of having like a redemption season. Like I'm still a guy that can play quarterback in this league, regardless if I'm a bridge quarterback or if I'm gonna be a really solid backup. So I mean it's great to see, and I think they're in the right direction. So I don't think anybody saw this coming.
Yeah, another team in the right direction, the Jags. It hasn't translated in wins every week, but look, for a team that was horrible last year, a lot of off the field stuff going on.
Right.
They had a rookie quarterback and Trevor Lawrence who wasn't quite living up to maybe some people's expectations, but still showing flashes here and there. This year, man, I mean, they look like a somewhat solid team. They definitely have grown. They
Right.
seem to have taken the next step in terms of getting better, and they're a team that in a division that they're in, it's wide open.
Nah,
They
I
have as
think
good a shot
it's
as anybody to win it.
right.
Some people probably have them as a favorite to win it at this point because of like we talked about with the disappointment with the Colts and
The
Tennessee.
Titans, there's so much uncertainty
Yeah, the
there.
Titans are kind of having their own struggles, and the Texans are still the Texans and not taking the next step. So, yeah, a team like the Jags, I mean, they've been able to put up points, and they've been able
That's
to
something that they've struggled with in the past.
right.
So, and it's good. It's good that James Robinson is back.
Mhm.
Obviously he had a devastating Achilles injury last year, but he's playing. It doesn't seem like he missed a beat. And again, Trevor Lawrence is playing great. They got him some weapons. It seems like him and Christian Kirk are on the same page, and it's good that he has that receiver. And hopefully everybody on that team can develop like as time goes on. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence shows some progression like he has been and can stay healthy because again that line I think is the main problem. But they're building on that, and again, you want to have a line to protect your franchise guy. So with
Yeah.
that being said, I think we could go into kind of a significant topic this week with just injuries in general and NFL's player safety policies and what's going on with that. We had a huge scare in that Bengals and Dolphins game with Tua, and it's great that he's doing well and he's gonna get some rest this week hopefully. And again, it's tough to see. We talked about it last week. It's
Yeah,
tough to
yeah,
see.
yeah. We talked about, because last week we saw Tua get hit in the Bills game, and he had to go out, and he couldn't walk and all that, and then you have Teddy Bridgewater come in, and Tua come back
Yeah,
later in the game.
and
He
that was
comes
just
back in and
like
plays, and it was a story. And then now this week he comes in and starts against the Bengals, and you know gets hit. Clearly. Some head trauma. I know they kept trying to say it was the back. Everyone's seen,
yeah, that's not no back.
the
That's not a back
reactions
problem.
that Tua was having, and look, the doctor was fired now. The NFL got rid of them, and yeah, it's just a disaster. Player safety in general, like we said, players tearing things on turf. I mean, at this point, look, you guys are the NFL. Why you have to have turf? Why you can't just have grass there and be able to maintain it with all the money that they make hand over fist.
Right, or at least get quality turf because
Yeah.
that turf is not gonna do it. It's not gonna cut it. And
So
it's just yeah, it's just
yeah.
tough.
So but yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what's going on. I mean, look, we've seen terrible hits before,
Right.
and usually, pretty much all the time, it doesn't look as bad as the stuff Tua was going through. I
Yeah,
mean,
to so what's your thoughts on that? Because as I mean, I'm not a coach, but if I was in that position, it's kind of like you got to take the helmet away. You got to hey, listen to it. You're sitting this one out. We're playing against the Bengals this week. It is what it is. Teddy Bridgewater can manage. He's not a bad quarterback. Let's sit you down. Let's get you some rest and we'll get some more evaluations. That's my take on it. Tua could say all the hell all he wants. He could be frustrated, but at the end of the day, it's a head injury. If it's a hammy injury, then it's like, all right, by all means, you make the decision on your own. But anything head wise, shoulders and above, it's just like I don't know. I personally don't think that Mike
yeah.
McDaniels took the right approach with that.
Well, I think the problem is um, when the doctors tell you he's okay, and you're a young head coach, and it was maybe a situation where it's not an excuse for him not to do the right thing, but I think his inexperience showed here. I
Yeah,
think a more experienced coach
would have
would
just
have
sat him.
said, "Nah, you can't go in. Like,
Yeah,
I don't care what the doctors are saying. We're gonna sit you the rest of this game, and we're gonna figure out some more stuff. Make sure you're good to go." He kind of takes the doctor's words for it, and it just wasn't the right call. And you see that when he didn't even get hit. He got sacked and pulled and kind of slammed into the ground where his head
yeah,
hits it, and that's it.
and it's
Things
just
go
another
haywire, and
right.
like I was saying before, we've seen violent hits before. What happened to Tua both weeks in a row might have
It's
been
devastating.
the two worst situations. I mean, and look, and this is counting when you see players, legs get bent the wrong way and
Yeah,
fingers go that way and
it's a
arms
tragedy,
go that
man.
way.
Because it's like my whole thing with it is he shouldn't have been playing, and it's like it happened Sunday. They were playing Thursday, so treatment wise, Monday maybe he got some treatment. Tuesday maybe he got some treatment. Wednesday, Thursday they're on the road to go prep for the game, and they're practicing. So it's like there's not much gap of rest. There's not much. So it's like just sit him down. Teddy
Yeah.
Bridgewater is a good enough quarterback to possibly win that
Well,
game.
I think the problem is also, like I said, it seems like more of like a Mike.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just an experience
yeah,
thing.
it's an experience thing, and the other part is if you bring him back to end the game because he was supposedly good enough,
Why wouldn't you bring him back into the next game?
right? And
Right.
and then probably they didn't look into it more. They figured, okay, the doctor said he's okay, but yeah, that's why you have to handle these things right from the jump, because
Right.
then they don't just go away as we see. Now it's a bigger issue where if maybe you would have sat him for the rest of that game,
Then
you
at
would have
least you have
you could have been
a little bit more
looking
leeway.
more into it, and then you would have said, "Oh no, he's not okay. We're not going to start him."
Right.
My guess is they probably didn't look into it that much afterwards.
They were probably so tied into the game because it was obviously a close
Yeah.
game where they were just like, all right, Tua, you ready to go and you ready to rock and just two in the moment. And it's like Tom or Tom Brady. Bill Belichick probably wouldn't have done that. Bill Belichick would have been like, all right, Tua, you're sitting out for this game. I don't give a damn what's going on.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like even Brandon Staley, it's like you have Justin Herbert out there playing with almost a broken rib and he's out there playing every single snap. It's like who's he going against? He's going against the Jaguars, and the Jaguars beat you guys that week. So it's like, if anything, just let the guy get some rest, let him heal, let him, and that's part of the thing. It's like there has to be there has to be some type of understanding. There has to be better evaluators, or they just, these coaches just need to be held accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see what happens further on in the year. Hopefully, nothing else happens, and hopefully, there's a lot less head injuries and things like that. But with that being said, we're gonna get into another topic. We have the top offensive rookies. There's a lot of standout rookies that's been playing well this year. It's kind of taken a while for them to kind of get set in, but seems like things are picking up. Chris Olave got his first career touchdown in London against the Vikings. Had a great game. He actually covered my over yards that I had for him, over 40 yards on the last play. But so yeah, Chris Olave, you have Dobbs on the Packers. He's playing lights out, and it seems like Aaron Rodgers is starting to build that trust with him, which is a beautiful thing to see because now we're going to be able to see a lot more shots down the field, things like that, and George Pickens, a lot of, I'm sure you have some rookies that you've seen over the span of the season so far.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the obvious ones. Some of them you said Olave, Dobbs, Pickens with that crazy catch, and
Yeah, that was
I
nuts.
mean, Pickens kind of been building since the preseason, just crazy blocks and just doing
Just
kind
a
of all
solid
around
receiver,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. But Garrett Wilson on the Jets. I mean, not
Yeah,
for Garrett Wilson, the Jets don't win the games that they do. So he's certainly been a bright spot. We knew his pedigree coming in from Ohio State, dominating over there. But it's still a bit of a surprise to see him be able to do things this
right.
early
Yeah,
in his
this
rookie
early.
season with, look, they didn't even have Zach Wilson the whole time. You got backup quarterbacks in there, and he's still finding ways to put up numbers and make some plays. So good for him. I mean, Drake London, not on a great team with Atlanta, but able to do some things and try to be a standout player. Traylon Burks for the Titans. He's shown flashes here and there so far. He'll be one to watch. There's some, there's some other guys on this list doing more, but he's shown the potential at least, which is what you want.
Yeah.
And it's hard this early, right? We're only a few games in to the season, and we're talking about rookies here, but yeah, all you really want to see right now is flashes of some potential, and Burks has shown it. A bit of a sleeper for me is Pacheco for the Chiefs. I mean, he's come in and they already have Clyde Edwards-Helaire there. This Bucks game, he was
Lights out.
he was he was doing work. They have him in there probably just as much snaps as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he seems to be the clear running back where if they want to really run the ball, they give it
That's
to
where they're
him.
gonna go.
He kind of has that motor, that
That
gritty
frame
attitude.
too.
He's fighting for the yards. And all they
I
keep
think
talking
that's
about is how this guy gets to the seventh round.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's his weakness. He's not an every down back. He
Right.
doesn't have the frame to
Yeah, he's
sustain
kind of more of
that.
a scat back, third down
Right,
type
he's
of
more of
back.
like a third down back, more of maybe like what Mark Ingram would do towards the tail end of his career. He has a small frame. You're not gonna give him 20 to 30 carries a game. I
Hmm.
mean, not that that's the reality anymore, but I mean, unless you're like a Derrick Henry or even now Saquon is starting to handle that load. But yeah, I mean, he's just, which is great. I think Pacheco is going to be able to step in, maybe give that kind of Kareem Hunt kind of feel a little bit. But again, I mean that's he's having a great season. He's off to a great start, and just looking forward to see what he's able to bring to that Chiefs offense because I mean we've seen what they could do passing wise and running game wise. They really haven't been the same since Kareem left.
Hmm.
They've been trying to find that filler. And Edwards Clyde-Helaire, he's good, but
Yeah.
again, it's just like we mentioned, he's not an every down back, and there's only so much you can do with that. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's some other guys stepping up as rookies. Damon Pierce for the Texans was kind
uh,
of doing his thing so far. Jahan Dotson for the Commanders, right? They haven't been able to win a lot of games, but with Carson Wentz, they've been putting up yards, and he's been a recipient. Could form a nice dynamic duo over there with
Yeah,
Scary Terry and um,
Curtis Samuel and be
yeah,
able to
yeah,
just build on that. I think they just need a quarterback. They need to find out something with their quarterback situation because once is I mean he just does it takes too long for him to get going.
mm,
So
yeah,
that's a whole nother subject. But with that being said, we're gonna get into some of the weekly previews that we have for next week. First game that we're gonna get into is the Chargers Browns game. The Chargers are favored by -3, and they're playing away. They're playing at the Browns. Should be an interesting game. I think it can go either way, really, because
yeah,
you have the Browns' run game and Jacoby Brissett. He's not a phenomenal quarterback, but he does enough, and he does what he has to do. And I think they just lost to the Falcons, and I think that's kind of gonna give them a little bit of an edge. And the Chargers, they they struggled with the Texans, but again, it's kind of we have to kind of see where they stand because it's like that should have been a gimme game, and they let
yeah.
the Texans come back
It's weird because obviously that game Herbert was still struggling with the
with the injury.
injury to his ribs and all that, and they played better last game and they got the win, but yeah, it'll be tough to see, you know, where is Herbert in that recovery process? Is he
Yeah,
going to be okay where he's not struggling and it's not affecting him? Will the Browns be able to put the pressure and get some hits and really, shake him up? We saw in the Chiefs game when he did get injured,
yeah, that was tough.
it looked like on one of those, I think it was like a third down pass where he just looked like he just got drilled right before it. He was already injured. We knew he was injured. It looked like it affected his play and being able to make the right decision and throw the right pass there. So yeah, I mean, I think like you said, this one is kind of an even game with where both of these teams stand right now. Obviously, the Chargers are way more explosive on offense. The Browns probably, with a little bit better of a defense and can really chew that clock up on the
Yeah,
ground with that 1-2 punch there with Chubb and Hunt, and they could really kind of eat up all that time and keep the ball out of Herbert's hands, make it
right.
hard for them when they do get the ball. It's hard to get going, and yeah,
Yeah, and then you have to look at the fact that you have Miles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney coming off the edge, and no Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater's out for the season, so that's
mm,
going to be a huge factor. Um, and that's not something that you want to be dealing with. You don't want to be dealing with one of the number one pass rushers in the league
mm,
as a quarterback with messed up ribs. So again, we'll see how that pans out. I would not be surprised if the Browns come out on top. This is a game that I can see the Browns winning, but again, we'll see what happens. Another interesting game that we have is the Cowboys versus the Rams. The Rams are favored right now. I believe
mm.
they're favored by -6. The line could have changed by then.
Yeah, it changed slightly. It's the Rams went to -4.5.
Okay,
So
that
people have
makes
been,
sense. They have their
Cowboys fans,
doubts. Yeah.
they're high on Cooper Rush and
Hey, I think Cooper Rush is something to be high on, not for
mhm,
nothing. I mean,
something to be high on.
I mean, it's weird because there's obviously some differences in him and Dak's play, but Dak plays very hesitant, it seems like, and Cooper Rush takes what the defense gives him. And sometimes that can be a benefit in just not overextending plays. If the play is there, take it. If it's not, then live for another down. And I think that's what Cooper Rush does great. And I think Kellen Moore likes that. I think Kellen Moore appreciates that. And Dak is on he's rushing to come back. I think he doesn't want to lose his job, but I mean,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah, Dak is over here talking about, yeah, I'm trying to get back this week, and the Cowboys like, no, no, don't worry, Dak, we
yeah,
got
take your
it.
sweet time.
Yeah.
Take your sweet time. And again, maybe this may be the downfall of Cooper Rush, and they may ice down the hype a little bit with the Rams. They probably want to get back on track. But again, we'll see what happens, and hopefully the Rams can come back and try to take care of business against the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Rams are a team that we talked about earlier. They've kind of had their struggles this year, kind of not really been able to show that they're the same team as last year so far.
Yeah,
But they get a Cowboys team with a backup quarterback. Cooper Rush is playing well. He's still a backup. He's not somebody who's going to just light you up, right? He's more of game manager mode plus sometimes where okay, he's a game manager, but he can let it fly a little bit
yeah,
and for certain time periods of the game. And the Rams, I mean, look, both of these teams have solid defenses this year.
yeah. The Cowboys have a great front four.
Yeah,
So
and the Rams defense is still good. This is a game where this is at home for the Rams. This is a game where if I'm the Rams, I look at this like, yeah, we there's no reason why we don't win
we
this
don't
game,
win this game.
right?
Yeah.
I don't care that Cooper Rush is a little bit hot right now. This is a game that we need to win. We have things we have to
They have
fix.
to
We
get
have
back
to
on
get back
track,
on track. Yeah.
especially they have to be able to get once Van Jefferson comes back, that'll alleviate a little bit more on Cooper Kupp, a little bit more on Allen Robinson. But I mean, I don't know. With the way that their blocking has been, their line has been really suspect. The Cowboys front four, I mean, not Dexter Lawrence, Michael Parsons is just like he's playing lights out, and it just opens up a lot for that entire D
Look,
line. So
we talked about we kind of recapped that Rams 49ers game earlier. Something I didn't even mention, the 49ers had 7 sacks in that game.
yeah, that's
So
tough.
now you come in and you have another defense
Right.
that's very good. And Micah Parsons is just a man possessed out there.
Yeah, and
He's going to, if he's not getting sacks,
he's gonna get
he's
somebody
getting
else.
pressures and
Yeah.
he's getting hits or he's freeing up somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's the part with the Rams that they'll have to figure out. I mean, like I said, they should be looking at this game as a game that they are supposed to win.
Yeah.
But they need to have the game plan to deal with these guys. And like you said, their line's struggling. They gotta find a way to overcome that.
Yeah, they have to pick that up. And another team that needs to pick up some things after a tough loss is the Ravens. The Ravens are versing the Bengals at home, and the Ravens are -3 favorite right now. I think the Bengals, they're starting to get back on track. I think Joe Burrow is starting to pick it back up again. I do think they're legit. I do think the Bengals are still somebody to worry about in the AFC. They're starting to get some continuity with that line, and that can be a problem. That can be an issue, especially with how the Ravens defense has been playing lately. If the Ravens fire off and they start playing well how they did in the beginning of the Bills game, then I think they have little to worry about, but they have to sustain that throughout the entire game. And Lamar has to play. He has to play. To be honest, he has to play a little bit better. You have to be able to put up points. You can't be putting up 20 points and not being able to finish drives. Not being able, you're extending too much, doing too much. Like if it's not there, throw it away. If it's, I don't know. I just think Ravens -3. I would take it only because also the Ravens have been kind of fed up with the Bengals. Bengals have been talking crazy, and the Ravens had barely half of their team last year, so that's probably something that they want to get revenge from. But we'll see what happens on Sunday. So
Yeah, I think the Ravens come into this game. We saw them blow 2 leads already. One to the Bills, one of the best teams. One to the Dolphins, possibly one of the best up and coming teams with how they're looking with a healthy Tua. I think in this game you have a Bengals team that did just go to the Super Bowl. They were kind of the surprise team last year. This is a divisional game. Like you said, there's bad blood between these teams. The Ravens are at home. They want to win this game. They're gonna be focused. They're not happy that they lost last week. I like the Ravens here to come out and handle business. Not let their foot off the gas and like we talked about earlier, find a way to finish games and close it out.
Yeah, they have to.
They kind of need to here. You can't pick up more losses this early in the season
Yeah.
and still and with everything that's been going on, I mean, Lamar has still been playing great. He's still been playing at that caliber as one of the better players in the league here. You got to find a way to string things together and not waste
Not
the
waste that.
performances of some of these guys and come out with a win here at home against a divisional opponent that we know these games matter in a division that I mean, look, the Steelers look to be more in a down year this year, but
Love it.
they're not going away, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going away here. The Browns they're still the Browns, but they're better.
Yeah, and
They're
once
not
Deshaun
giving it
Watson
away.
comes back, we'll see what
The
happens.
Bengals, they're coming off a year where they just went to the Super Bowl. So and then you're the Ravens. You're a team that should have been going deep into the playoffs last year if you weren't dealing with other issues. So look, this is a division where all these teams are kind of going to be
Tough teams. The
tough
AFC
teams.
North is always a
Yeah,
tough division,
it's always
regardless of the
tough.
circumstances.
It's probably even tougher now with the somewhat rise of the Browns and the somewhat decline of the Steelers. Right, it kind of makes them all a little bit closer to the middle here. So yeah, this is a Ravens team that coming into the season, I think probably more of a favorite to win this division than the rest of them. They have a chance here to get a win that's going to matter a lot. So
Yeah.
I see the Ravens capitalizing here, and I think they'll be able to cover the spread as well.
Yeah. So with that being said, if you're looking to make some money, we have some best bets that we're gonna try to go over. And so first off, we have the Texans versus the Jags, a divisional game, and the Jags are a -7 or I think they're -7 right now. They're -7 favorite at home.
So they're -7. Some places they're moved up to 7.5. I like them at 7. Obviously, 7.5 is a bit tough.
Iffy, yeah.
Being a divisional game, but yeah, I mean, look, the Texans and the Jaguars last year were along the same
Talent-wise.
type of team,
Yeah.
talent wise, production wise, and all that. This year, I think there's a clear difference. I think the Jags have been playing well. I think they've got some tough losses despite them playing well and showing some progress.
They're headed in the right direction. Which is
Yeah,
a good
they're
thing.
certainly headed in the right direction. I think this is a team that can go in there. They're playing at home. They have the Texans rolling in there. This is a team that they probably have circled on their schedule as, okay, this is a team that we need to win.
Yeah.
One, it's a divisional game. Two, talent wise, we should be able to beat this team
Right.
and come away with a win instead of having other teams get it done and close us out. So I like the Jags here. If you could get a -7, I think that's the way to go.
And another divisional game that we have coming up, we have the Bears versus the Vikings, -7, which is, I believe, oddly enough, I believe it could go either way, only because it's a divisional game. But I have the Vikings going -7. I take that for sure. Justin Jefferson is, I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
who they really have to contain him.
So this is what I did for this game. I looked at one, it's home for the Vikings, right?
Right.
And like you said, it's a divisional game, but it's not a primetime game. So guess what? Kirk Cousins is going to be just fine.
And
He's going to get the ball to Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's probably going to have 150 plus yards,
and we'll see what
a
happens.
touchdown or two. And look, the Bears, I mean, they just have not looked good at all. They cannot protect Justin Fields. They're actually at this point already a few weeks into the season. They're in danger of just ruining this guy's career. They can't protect him. He's getting hit more than anyone.
Right.
He doesn't have real weapons, right? Mooney's a decent receiver, but he's not a top tier talent at wide receiver. The rest of the wide receivers, who I don't even know where you want to rank them. You know what I mean? They don't have any like solid go-to running backs.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
You know what's crazy? They had an under, and man, FanDuel loves to do this. FanDuel loves to do this because they had a thing, right? They're like, and granted, I mean, Justin Fields hit the under every week, right? Goes against the Giants. The lowest under, 145 yards. And Justin Fields has been under all the time. Da 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 da. Goes like within the first quarter. And what's crazy is they had a under for Darnell Mooney within the first quarter. I took it. I was like, oh yeah, he's not gonna pass it. It was raining at the day. I was like, oh yeah, it's a nasty day. They're probably just gonna run the ball just like they did against the Niners, and we'll have another monsoon game. And what do you know? Justin Fields goes and he throws over 145 yards. Same thing with Cooper Kupp yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp, that's a guaranteed touchdown. There's been a boost on it. And what happens? Cooper Kupp doesn't get a touchdown. So I mean, I don't know. It's probably an analytical thing where they look into it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Justin Fields is weird. I still haven't completely made my mind on him.
Well, you can't because he's not playing in a real team. You know,
you
because you can't evaluate players. He might as well be injured.
No, I see that's where I see things differently with so Andy Dalton played with the same team, and Andy Dalton got a lot out of Darnell Mooney. He got a lot out of not Ty Montgomery, David Montgomery.
No, time out. This is not. It's not the same. It's not.
It is. The difference is, and you could look at it. You could even look at it in the Saints game. You know, obviously Andy Dalton is not what he used to be when he was on the Bengals, and he's not like the red rifle like they used to call him. But he gets rid of the ball fast, and again, obviously it's a little bit hard to do when you don't have much protection. But he literally had the same protection that Justin Fields has. I think the problem is that these coaches, they just throw these quarterbacks into the fire. You know who's a quarterback I wouldn't be surprised plays great once Aaron Rodgers' time is up is Jordan Love. I don't think you keep Jordan Love for that long if you don't believe in him. And I think he's learning behind Aaron Rodgers the way that quarterbacks should be learning. You should be holding a clipboard, earning your stripes in the locker room, understanding how to run an offense, understanding these factors, and then once you're ready, put you in that situation.
Yeah. Well, either way, I think the Vikings handle the Bears here.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this. We could get into the whole Justin Fields maybe later on in the season where we see more of a body of work. But yeah, we could get into it. So another bet that we want to get into is the 49ers versus the Panthers. The Niners are away and they're the -4.5 favorite. I think this is a gimme.
Yeah. So here's what happened with this game. I was talking about earlier about looking at, you know, the stats between the Niners and the Rams, and I knew that I kind of felt like just from the eye test, from what I've seen this year, the Niners were going to win. Looking at the numbers,
right?
A pass-heavy team going against one of the best passing defenses in the league,
and a run-heavy offense.
The 49ers are going to just destroy them. This line was 4.5. It's down. It's all the way up to -6.5 now after watching what the 49ers did to the Rams.
Take it today.
So, and this is another game where, yeah, I feel like, this is a gimme for the 49ers. I like them to cover 4.5. I still like them to cover 6.5. I think the Niners hold a Panthers offense that isn't very good at all. And I think they're the number one offense in the league. They're tied with the Bills right now. Number one defense in the league, tied with the Bills right now.
Right.
In total yards per game, I think they're going to show up and do what they do on the road. And I think offensively they'll be able to put up more than enough points to leave this game a bit out of reach for Baker Mayfield and the Panthers. So
I'd love to see Baker struggle. I love to see it. He even struggled against the Cardinals. But yeah, I don't think the Panthers have enough firepower. I don't think their defense would be able to hold that, to sustain that run. And again, I think Baker's going to be Baker, as I always say. And we'll see what happens. I mean, that's pretty much it for the day. And again, thanks for joining us for the 5th episode of the Illegal Defense. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to hear any topics, leave a comment below, and we'll definitely get to it. And thanks for watching.